Hello, one and all! So the second season of The Promised Neverland has begun. I was rather pleasantly surprised by the first episode. Now, don't get me wrong, I love The Promised Neverland, I ended up reading it all the way to the final chapter, and I enjoyed it, but I always felt it was, never as good as it was in the first arc, basically what the first season of the anime covered, so I was a little worried going into season 2, but it does seem like season 2 is willing to make the changes needed to make it as good as season 1 was, and that really was shown in that scene right before the demon attacked them, just that overwhelming tension, just the silence as they're trying to figure out what's happening, what's coming after them, what's gonna happen next. It felt so similar, just those high tension moments in season 1, and I'm just very happy about that. That being said, I am seeing quite a few complaints online, a lot of people saying, this episode felt rushed or the pacing was off, and there's a fairly good reason for that. Basically, this one episode of the anime covered 8 chapters of the manga. For a bit of reference, the entire first season only covered about 30 chapters. So yeah, they definitely skipped a lot, but even that I'm kind of glad they did. The big thing they skipped was the snakes of Alva Panera. You might remember that was the thing that Rei was trying to use to trick the demon to fall into the hole and get captured. But in the manga, there was like 3 chapters of them battling the snakes of Alva Panera. Basically, right after they escaped, Emma and Rei went to scout a little bit. When they came back, it's like, everyone's gone! Because they had fallen into the pits, into the snakes. And then they fell into the pits. And like, hey, you know what? Underground here, it's like really nice and warm. I think we should be safe here. Until they realized they were basically in a giant Venus flytrap that was planning on, bringing them to its center and then sucking them dry of all their nutrients, which, very, very bad. But that's where Emma discovers, this is the Snakes of Alva Panera. This is from the Adventures of Ugo. And then she gets this weird thing where, she basically says, hey, now that we have this book, we can basically solve any problem we come across because this book has all the answers we need. And yet the book is never actually referenced again after this point. So it just felt like, maybe the author changed his mind. Maybe he had a whole different story in mind where the book plays a big role, where they have to, use it to solve various mysteries, to decipher the mythology in it. But no, it just never comes up again. I've always found it very, very strange. In fact, I came into this episode really hoping that they would just skip that part because it doesn't really serve any real purpose. I do like how they use the book a little more sparingly in this episode of the anime where like, hey, that's from the Adventures of Ugo. That means that we can use this, we can use that. It wasn't, this big guide for fighting monsters and taking down evil trees that tried to kill them. It was more just a survival guide saying, hey, there's water over there, and explaining what some of these weird plants and animals that were all around them really were and how they worked. And that brings me to something else I just really liked about this episode of the anime, and that was, the plants, the animals. It was in the manga a little bit, but this episode just did an amazing job of making this whole world feel foreign, feel alien to them, as these things, scuttling around them, growing around them, they don't recognize, they've never seen before, that we as the viewers don't recognize, that we've never seen before. It actually kind of reminded me of Made in Abyss, where they're, creating this whole huge ecosystem that's living and breathing all around them. Maybe not to that level, but it definitely gave me those vibes, and I really did like that. As for things I wasn't a big fan of, probably the demon that chased after them that was CGI. I mean, not overwhelmingly bad CGI. I've definitely seen worse. Definitely seen worse. And, the scene was dark, so you couldn't really make it out. That definitely helped. But it's just a far shot from the creature we see in this chapter of the manga, who, he's a little more intimidating, a little more terrifying. There's also a whole conversation that's skipped while they're running away from that demon where they're basically like, hey, I think this thing's a demon, but it looks different from the other demons we saw. Well, I guess demons come in various shapes and sizes and stuff. That really wasn't all that necessary here, and they could definitely have it, down the road, especially now that they're with demons at the moment, at the end of the episode. I will definitely get into that in a second. Anyway, another thing I wasn't really all that fond of was Rei running away from the other demons, trying to lure them away from Emma and the rest of them. The manga really depicted this more as a game of chess where he's trying to outmaneuver them, trying to trick them, even at one point throwing his scarf to distract them, and he comes pretty close to, actually managing to outwit them, outmaneuver them, instead of the anime, which kind of just depicts him as hoping that he can run faster than freaking demons, which, no, he cannot. And this next point might have actually been in the end of season 1 of the anime. I'm just forgetting about it, but in the manga, at least in this part of it, Rei thanks Anna for sacrificing her hair so they could trick Mom with a burning hair smell to make him think it was actually Rei in there that was being, burning alive. And she says, hey, forget about it. Consider it a birthday present for you. It's just so freaking adorable. I love that. Oh, I freaking love that. I'm also just a big fan of how the anime presented Emma in this episode, In the manga, she's basically like, hey, I'm fine. Then all of a sudden she passes out. Where in this one, from the very first scene, it's made clear that Emma is not doing all that well. She's sweating. She looks a little bit pale. She's clearly feeling the effects of, cutting off her freaking ear and then basically just sticking a band-aid on it and hoping it'd be okay. So I really like that. Some better foreshadowing the anime. And then we come to the end of the episode where Ray realizes that the people who saved them are in fact demons. Oh yeah, that was definitely a very tense scene, like right before the other demon attacked them. And I'm just curious, what do you think? People down below, people who are watching this who have not read the manga, what are your guesses? What are your predictions for who these demons are? Why did they save Emma and Ray? Are they vegetarians? Is this a Hansel and Gretel thing, or they're trying to fatten them up? Did they already eat all the other kids, and now they're just waiting to eat Emma and Ray because they're the highest rank and the most delicious? Are they from a foreign demon nation that's at war with the demon nation that's chasing after them? What's your guess? What are your predictions about all this? I am very curious to see what your predictions are for these two demons who, saved humans and even gave them medical treatment. And just what do you think of this episode overall? Like I said, they had to cut out a lot of the manga to fit this all into one episode, but I feel like overall it's for the best. I feel like this was an improvement over what we saw in the manga. To me, this part of the manga has always felt very messy, like the author himself wasn't exactly sure where he was going. But this episode, the anime felt much more streamlined, giving out what was, basically the same amount of information as the manga did over a much, much longer period of time. But let me know what you think about all that down below. Be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss my next video. And until then...
Peace!